armed war.
Sometimes it's just an engine failure, other times it's the deadly flak. If the pilot's lucky, the flak kills him. But usually he isn't, and he burns to death as his plane spins in.
It sounds absurd to even think that the United States, the world's economic superpower, might crash. After all, they get the highest ratings from the credit rating agencies.
One of the lessons that we must learn from the mortgage-related subprime is you have to take credit ratings with a big grain of salt. Because as we saw with the mortgage-related securities, they went from AAA rating to junk bond pretty fast once people understood the true situation. Today, the United States is rated AAA, but if it doesn't start taking steps to put its financial house in order, that AAA rating will be lost. It's only a matter of when and how quickly.
In September 2008, the bankruptcy of one large investment bank brought the world economy to its knees. The fate of Lehman Brothers raised the question of who was next in line, so everyone avoided doing business with banks. How will the world react if the next entity to declare bankruptcy is a nation? Who is next in line if that were to happen? Some houses of cards have already started falling. This is Iceland, until recently one of the richest nations in the world. When the crisis hit, the Icelandic banks collapsed. The Icelandic stock market crashed, leaving the debt with a small population. For the first time in 50 years, this peaceful country saw riots. This is Greece. Here, deficits have hit a record high. The national debt is approaching 135% of GDP. The market wants higher interest rates for Greek loans, increasing the pressure on its strained economy. It seems like the Greek government needs a bailout to avoid collapse. Italy, Spain, Portugal, and Great Britain are other EU nations with similar problems. What about my country, Sweden? The country's finances are fairly robust. Our national debt and deficit are lower than that of most nations. But Sweden is highly dependent on the world economy. More than half of our prosperity is based on exports. When other countries crash, we get hit almost as hard. And Swedish housing prices have risen during the crisis, despite the recession and despite rising unemployment. But because of low interest rates and a government mortgage company, SBAB, making loans easier to get. Swedes have never carried more debt in relation to their income. Doesn't all of this sound very familiar?
We have new bubbles everywhere, so I am pretty worried about what's going to happen.
If you don't want bubbles to burst, then don't blow them up in the first place, because all bubbles burst.
If enough things can go wrong, some of them probably will. The question is just which needle will burst this bubble? Will it be new credit losses as banks take on greater risks, knowing that the government considers them too big to fail? Or falling stock prices as interest rates rise and the steroids wear off? Will it be the Chinese economy overheating? Or will it be a collapse of confidence in the US dollar?
If we lose the confidence of our foreign lenders, and we must not allow that to happen, but if that were to happen, then there would be a dramatic decline in the dollar, a dramatic increase in interest rates, significant fueling of inflation, a very, very deep recession and possibly depression that would be felt around the world. We must not allow that to happen.
When the next bubble bursts, you cannot use the same emergency measures. You can't lower interest rates that are already at rock bottom. You can't stimulate the economy with borrowed money if an excessive national debt is the cause of the crisis. The governments could save the banks, but who can save the governments?
Ultimately, there's going to be a price all around the world to be paid for this. And the longer it continues, the bigger that price is going to be.
You know, this really is a moral question. I mean, I can give you plenty of big and bad numbers. You know, when you talk about tens of trillions of dollars, it's just hard to imagine. But you have to put a face on it. And to me, I put my children's and my grandchildren's face on it. It's their future that we're mortgaging.
When we tell people that there's going to be a bailout bubble, and they see the world equity markets up 50, 60%, they don't want to believe that it's another bubble. They want to step right up back to that table and throw their dice and try to win their hand at the wheel of fortune that Wall Street's spinning. So people still don't want to believe that the worst is yet to come.
It's easy to think of these predictions as much too gloomy, but that is exactly what people said the last time. When these experts predicted the 2008 financial crisis, they were laughed at in the media.
You guys are deluding yourself.
We can do it, but we need to do it soon because the clock is ticking and time is not working in our favor.
Some of the townsfolk said he was dumb as dirt, but it didn't bother him none. He had a steely look in his eyes that told a different story. He didn't pay no mind. He was a pioneer through and through, and his mind was as wide open as that prairie he'd left behind. His only weaknesses were women and firewater.